It was on the top of the first sermon that I wrote for Hunter Beckelheimer in a homiletics class at Bright Divinity School 40 years ago. I had written a sermon about Jesus that I thought was really good, and when it was done, he simply in red letters at the bottom of the page said, "This is a Christ cliche." He didn't mean it as a compliment. What he meant was that I had stated a problem, had developed that problem with some precision, with some clarity, and then just kind of dropped Jesus into the solution without equal development. He said it's a cliche just to say that Jesus is the answer. He said we really got to know how he relates to the questions that are being asked. And I had to admit then and ever since that I've got a propensity for this. The tribe that I belong to really puts the emphasis on preaching the gospel, on making the gospel central, of making what God has done for us in Jesus Christ the nub of the Christian issue. But in doing that sometimes I have neglected to develop with equal precision how it applies. Francis Schaeffer observed that in those eras of American history when folks like me, folks with my perspective on the gospel, have had a greater grip on culture, that culture has been just as materialistic and just as militaristic and just as racist as at any other times, pointing to the fact that just preaching the gospel by itself is never going to be enough. There has also got to be application. There has got to be an attention paid to the way that the preaching of the gospel connects with the pressing issues of society. This is why A.W. Tozer used to say that Bible exposition without Bible application is worse than no Bible exposition at all. So I'm thinking this week about the Great Commission. Think about the mission of the church and what it is that Christ has asked us to do. And naturally, I gravitate to the preaching the gospel side of that. But I also know I've got to pay attention to the second part of that command, what Dallas Willard called the Great O Mission. It's not enough just to preach the gospel. We've also got to make disciples. We've also got to be deliberate about helping people see how the gospel impacts the pressing social issues of the day. Think Christianly is how Harry Blameyers put this. And he suggested this thought experiment. He said, come up with an issue. Any pressing issue of the day. Something from the front page of the paper. Something that disturbs you. A human hurt, a human hope. And then stand back from that and ask yourself, how should I as a Christian be thinking about this issue? How does the gospel apply to this issue? He said, don't think about it first politically. Don't think about it first economically. Don't think about it first socially. Think first Christianly. Ask yourself if the gospel is true. If Jesus Christ truly came, truly died, truly was raised, truly ascended back into heaven, truly gave us the Spirit to indwell us, will truly, fully, finally establish the kingdom in its fullness, then what difference do those convictions have to do with how I think, with how I feel, with what I need to do? If we're not making that connection, it seems to me that we are guilty, all of us, of reducing Jesus Christ to a cliche.